You are listening to Night Dreams Talk Radio Network, from our compound to you worldwide, with your host, Gary Anderson.
Listening to my friend Gary Anderson on Night Dreams Talk Radio, the best in paranormal radio.
Well, thank you, John. I always try. Sometimes I do it. Sometimes I blow it. Well, hey, I'm just recovering from a little medical problem I had this past week. Well, emergency anyway. But I am doing good, and I'm back on the air, and boy, it feels good. But if I kind of word things wrong tonight, I hate to say it, I am on a little bit of legal pain medication. Hey, tonight we do have a great guest. We're going to talk about something we haven't really ever talked about on the show, and with Alan-Thompson here in a couple minutes. In the news today, I'm really kind of shocked what's going on with Trump. I really try to stay out of the political side, but you know, this little thing with the wall and going to the point where it will maybe, and there's a very good chance, our government will shut down partial. I don't know. You know, the Republican Congress today went ahead and gave him the money he wanted, knowing that the Senate is no way going to pass it. I don't know. That's just giving in, because putting their hands up in the air and saying, hey, we don't know what to do. But then, you know, GoFundMe has already raised, I think, about $5 million towards building the fence on the border. I don't know what you guys' opinion is, but if you want to get a hold of me and tell me if you think we should build the fence or not, get a hold of me at nightdreamstalkradio@gmail.com. And our guest, Alan-Thompson, will be on right after this.
Please check out the Night Dreams Talk Radio website at www.nightdreamstalkradio.com. Also, if you want to keep our show free of advertising, just hit the donate button. Give $1 or $2. Remember, all prior shows are always free to listen to. We at Night Dreams Talk Radio thank you for your support.
And check out the web at www.nightdreamstalkradio.com. Check out our gallery. It's going to be updated tomorrow. Hey, Alan-Thompson, how you doing?
Doing great, Gary. How are you?
Yeah, what part of the country are you in there, sir?
I live in eastern Idaho currently.
Oh, okay. That's not that far away.
No, not at all.
Yeah. Last time we couldn't talk because we lost our power. We almost lost it again today. I'm just wondering if we're going to have major storms. We had a tornado here a few days ago up near Port Orchard, Washington, which we never had one of those, and it tore off a lot of people's roofs.
Huh. Yeah, we're just dealing with actually it's nicer weather today. It's about 25 degrees, 30 degrees, but there's snow everywhere.
Good time to go sledding. Well, Alan, what on this book you wrote? It's on Amazon. What got you motivated, and what got you into this subject?
Great. So the book that I wrote is called Creation, Abomination, and it's a supernatural science fiction thriller. And basically what got me into the idea of writing this book was like back in 1995, I had just read the book called Jurassic Park by Michael Crichton and saw the movie. And it really just kind of struck a chord with me because I've always been a big fan of science and realistic, kind of plausible science, especially when it's put into to book or movie format. And I've always had an extreme fascination and just a big appeal with more of the supernatural, paranormal, especially kind of angels and demons. And I cooked up what I thought was a really great storyline back in 1995 called Creation, Abomination. So that was kind of the genesis of it all.
Oh, wow. How long out of curiosity, did it take you to write the book?
It actually took me, so I came up with the idea originally in 1995, and I wrote a 28-page outline. I'm a real detail-oriented kind of person, and then I let it sit on the shelves for about 15 years until 2010. And I figured I'm getting older, and I better just, kind of crack it open and work hard at this, because I didn't want to, by the time I was 70, 75, look back and just regret it. So I started researching in 2010 into the science behind it. And the book itself, so Creation, Abomination, it has to do with cloning, good versus evil. It has moral and ethical dilemmas, and it actually gets a little creepy. And so there's a strong science component with regard to the cloning, and that's what I wanted to do a lot of research into to really boost the believability of the story. So I spent about a year doing the research, and then after I did that, it took me about 4 years of writing. Now, it should have taken me 4 years, but the thing is I was working, my normal corporate America job, and so I kind of couldn't write unless the two stars aligned of having spare time and actually having motivation, as you can imagine. And so I took about 4 years to write it, and then I took about a year to a year and a half to go through the whole editing process. So all said and done, it was about 6 years from start to finish researching and then to actually publishing the book.
Oh, wow. So how do you regret writing the book, or how do you feel about it? What type of feedback have you been getting since it's out on the streets?
I've been getting great feedback since I went ahead and self-published the book. It's probably like one of the most kind of exciting things for me. The most exciting thing wasn't publishing the book. Really, the most exciting thing was having the book published and then being at an event like Comic-Con or being at a Renaissance fair or being at a book signing and having people who have purchased the book previously come and they say, hey, you're Alan-Thompson, you wrote this book, I loved it. They want to talk about some scenes. That's really a great feeling for me, just having people get a lot of enjoyment out of it. So definitely, I think it's been really well received.
Oh, wow. The cloning issue, even, cloning life or even cloning body parts, back about a year ago, I can't remember the gentleman's name, but he's the CEO of one of these big, drug companies. And they've been experimenting, like growing fingers and growing replacement toes. And they almost have that perfected. And that kind of, tells me, the whole thing of cloning is just going to be rather interesting. Cloning the whole person, cloning body limb parts. They're working on trying to clone, hands and feet and all this type of stuff.
Yeah, exactly. There's really kind of two different main camps when it comes to cloning in terms of what they're trying to attempt to do. Before I kind of describe the camps, let me give you what the premise of the book is, and then you can kind of see which camp this book falls into. So the premise of the book, the main character, he's working on his doctorate degree at the University of Southern California, and his thesis is to figure out how to heal injuries to the human body that are normally irreparable, like brain damage, and doing that with adult stem cells. So there comes that strong science component. Well, the adult stem cells doesn't work. But what he figures out is that embryonic stem cells will work. However, there is a big catch. Okay? And the catch is that the embryonic stem cells, they have to come from the person who needs to be healed. Now, if you pause for a second and think about that, that's pretty impossible, especially when you're talking about, the type of these embryonic stem cells. There are, there's, been recent research like in the last couple of months where they say, hey, there's a form of an embryonic stem cell which can be found in teeth. And the type of stem cells I'm talking about, they're called pluripotent stem cells. And they literally exist for only 18 hours immediately after an embryo is formed. So what happens then is the main character comes to the conclusion that in order for his testes product to work, he actually has to create a human embryonic clone of that person who needs to be healed, and then harvest the cells from the embryo, which destroys the embryo in the process. And that's pretty much where the book takes off. So with that premise in mind, when you think about kind of the two camps in cloning, or the two different types of approach you could do it, one is almost more of, I would almost kind of call it a benign type of cloning, which is, and it sounds kind of creepy to say it, but only cloning like an organ or cloning skin or an ear or something which is, non-sentient, it doesn't have intelligence, type of a thing. It's a completely different thing to clone an entire life form, especially when you consider, because there's, like Dolly the sheep, and they clone a sheep, they've cloned monkeys, and they've done things like that, but never have scientists cloned, an actual human being and then allowed that clone to, come to fruition and actually be born or hatched or, spawned in a test tube. And so that is really the camp and the angle that Creation Abomination falls into, is it does have to do with cloning an entire human life form, even at its embryonic state. And then from there, that just brings out a whole slew of kind of, moral and ethical dilemmas.
So what you're saying, basically, you're going to clone yourself, and then after it conceives and it starts its life, you're going to then, tear it apart, basically, and use it then to create what you need.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah. It's creating that embryonic form and then getting the substance, kind of material from it that you need to heal whatever your ailment or injury is. And at that point that you take that material, the embryo is literally destroyed.
Yeah, that's interesting too. It's a hard one to take. I mean, science-wise, I think it's would be feasible down the road. Moral-wise, I mean, there's going to be a lot of people that are going to say, "Hey, you're taking a life." But when does life actually been created? Has it created in a test tube, or is it created after 9 months or 6 months or 3 months? When is it?
Uh-huh. Right, and that's a huge question, and that is something, and that's something which pretty much most people, they kind of have their own opinion, and they make their own decision based on their experiences and based on their beliefs. And in Creation Abomination, what I try not to do, and I think I do a really good job doing that, is I try not to put forth an opinion. And we'll say, hey, this is the way it is, and this is good, this is bad. I try to put it forth in a way that the reader can essentially discern for themselves what their position is on that. And so, there's definitely the camps of, if as soon as an embryo is formed, life exists. And then some people say, well, it's not until the embryo actually looks like some kind of like a human life form, or it's at 4 months or 7 months. And, to me, it's like, okay, well, who judges that anyway? And how can they even measure it in terms of when that life form begins? So that's why I don't attempt to, to detail or dictate my opinion, but rather I'm presenting it in such a way that the reader really is forced to kind of, think to themselves, to, think introspectively about what that means to them and when they would consider it.
Well, yeah, I mean, I can honestly say that it would be really hard to make your own opinion, because if you do, you're going to have half the people in the camp mad at you. The other half are going to be agreeing with you, so you have no choice. But, like before we talked earlier today, China, the one scientist, disappeared. China has been noted for like one of the biggest,